Let's fling it around the NBA. All 30 teams, all injuries. Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and I want you to do me a favor. If I tell you that this show is going to start at 9:15, what time is it? I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Blue Sky at joshloyd.bsky.social, on Twitter at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Get $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Go to FanDuel.com to get started, and also go to LockedOnDaily.com. And there you can find a newsletter. It is the best thing you will find about your favorite team. Sign up, LockedOnDaily.com. And go and check out all the great information that's pumping out about your favorite teams over there. And you know what to do. You're double banging as well. You're thumbing it up. And maybe we get this one done in 30 minutes today. We'll see how we go. Just a quick little scheduling note. One game on today, Knicks Raptors. I will be doing a recap show, but it won't just be recapping that game. There'll be that game, plus we'll do some other stuff in there. And that'll be like a little bit of a mini 6-part series that I'm going to be rolling out over these low volume days this week and next week. All right, so that's what we'll be doing to just fill in the bit of those holes, giggity, in some of these lower volume days. Just give you guys the heads up there. All right, let's talk about it, yeah? Let's talk about the injuries across the NBA, and it's actually not a bad period. Now, your fantasy team might like to disagree with me, and that is okay. But overall, we've actually, like, outside of losing those couple of big ones with Franz Wagner and Brandon Ingram, injury-wise, I think we're not in a terrible spot. We're also in a period of the schedule here, obviously, like I've banged on about over the next 4 days, there are 8 games total. So players who do have these little injuries that maybe kept them out on Saturday or Sunday, I think they're going to be fine. You get potentially, for a lot of teams, 4 days off, or they play and then they have 3 or 4 days off, and that enables these injuries to get better. So I think we're in a better spot than we were a week or so ago. For the Atlanta Hawks, last game, there was no Jalen Johnson and there was no Bogdan Bogdanovic. Johnson had a shoulder issue and Larry Nance started in his place. I don't really think that the Johnson injury is going to be something serious. It's not that it was a fake injury. We saw that there was some issues with him in the game previous. They play NBA Cup on Wednesday. They're one of the knockout teams, and again, I will reiterate this, and I did Blue Sky this, and I did tweet this out earlier today, talking about people getting confused again about the schedule. If your team plays in the NBA Cup, if you've got players that play in those teams in the knockout rounds, they do have another game this week. If they win, they play Saturday. If they lose, they play Sunday, with only one exception. And that is, if the Knicks and the Bucks both lose, then they play Monday. That is it. Those teams will have an extra game. So the Atlanta Hawks are going to have an extra game this week, I assure you. They 100% are going to, and it is either Saturday or Sunday. I just don't know when, because I don't know whether they win or not. So Jalen Johnson, I think he's fine. I think he'll be okay to go, which is great because he's been like a first round-ish sort of a player this season. And Bogdan Bogdanovic, who had the hamstring problem earlier in the season, missed the last game with a quad problem. I also think part of the issue, or part of the resting of these guys in that cook they got against the Nuggets, was to get them ready for this knockout game on Wednesday. So I actually think both of these guys are going to play and they're fine and ready to go. W for them. Boston's only one injury sitting on the injury report at the moment, and it is slamming Sammy Hauser. Yeah, Al Horford missed the last game, but it was a back-to-back. It was rest, and that was the end of that 5-game and 7-day period that the Celtics had where everyone was sitting out. Hauser had a little bit of problems with some adductor issues through that period as well. If he is out, it just means a little bit more for someone like Peyton Pritchard, and it means that you get a little bit more out of Al Horford, but no one else really matters that much as they keep cycling through those reserve centers. So Hauser had been starting to step up and look not bad as a stream guy, but it's still going to be just deeper league stuff would be my guess. More injuries on the Brooklyn Nets versus those first two teams. Cam Thomas still out with his hamstring injury. I don't think we're too far away from him returning. I've got an estimated return of around the 16th of December. So for those of you at home working this out with a calculator, you might be within a week or so. Maybe it's that, and that's not many games missed for the Nets. So our long-time international nightmare of trying to figure out whether it's Keon Johnson or Shake Milton or Jalen Wilson or Zaire Williams or Tyrese Martin or any other random bloke that would pop off is over, I think, soon. Zaire Williams, like I said, we haven't had an update on that, so I'm going to put him as questionable. I'm actually thinking that the injury is a little bit more severe than they mentioned. They've called it a knee sprain, which is never good. They haven't given any timetable here on Zaire. We're obviously not rostering Zaire Williams in 10 or 12 team leagues. Maybe it's deeper leagues and you're stashing for longer term, but I'm a little worried about that. The other one, I think we've only got 2 WFKs on this show today, and one of them is Bojan Bogdanovic. Because have you heard of this man before? Have you heard a single part of anything, any updates at all? Is he ever going to play for the Nets? That's my question. Because he was a part of the Mikal Bridges trade, and it just sort of got swept under the rug. Not swept under the rug, like nobody talks about it at all. Hasn't played at all this season with a foot issue that he suffered an injury in the playoffs with the Knicks. And I just hear nothing. So I honestly don't know. And when he comes back, what does it do to everybody else on this team? It is a very weird scenario. So I have no idea when Bojan Bogdanovic comes back. Absolutely none. I cannot really find any concrete information on it. Jalen Martin's been dealing with a knee problem. He's a two-way guy, but just so Jalen Martin and his family who are watching this just know that I do care about every player in the NBA, and hopefully you are back soon, Jalen. Not that you're going to play many minutes at all, unfortunately for you at this point. On to the Charlotte Hornets. More injuries here that are more important, but I think there's quite a few of these that are going to resolve pretty quickly here. Well, not pretty quickly, but like with their next batch of games coming up. Miles Bridges has been out for a lengthy period of time with his irritation or aggravation of his knee bone bruise. I'm going to put him as questionable for the next game. So we know there's been absences in that front court. Obviously, Mark Williams rested the last game, so he'll return. Whether it's more than 11 minutes or not, I don't know, but Williams needs to be rostered. Bridges returning is going to impact guys like Cody Martin, who'd been getting a little bit of a bump in minutes there. LaMelo Ball, I've got an estimated return around the 19th of December. Yeah, the 12th of the 19th month. Cool. The 19th of... Yeah, see how stupid your dates are? Americans, fix it. 19th of December for LaMelo Ball, and with him out, we just keep using Vasilije Micic because he is the guy that is providing the value at the moment. It won't be long-term, but it's there for now. Tidjane Salahin sprained his ankle. He was an interesting fill-in option to stream while we had big center absences and Bridges' absence, but he might be back next game. I don't think it matters for most of us. I actually think the Trey Mann situation is much more serious than the LaMelo Ball one, so I've actually bumped... I know they gave him both a 2-week time period. I've actually bumped Trey Mann a little bit out till after Christmas, and I'm a bit worried that it lasts longer. Obviously, if LaMelo was out and Mann was healthy, we'd be spamming him, but he's not, and I just worry that this back is a significant problem for Trey, and I wouldn't be holding out any hope for a return soon. The other one is Moussa Diabate, who missed out on the last game due to illness. He had an opportunity to play some minutes with Mark Williams resting, and Nick Richards had an ankle problem, and Salahin and Bridges were both out. But he got sick and he didn't play the last 2 games, and now he's going to be squished to be the third string center and probably the third string power forward, which means that in most leagues you can jack him. Let's go on to the Chicago Bulls. We haven't really had much of an update on Patrick Williams recently. We had a small update. He's been dealing with that foot problem, which they're calling injury management, which is clearly not injury management considering he's missed another 2 weeks with it now from something that happened over the offseason. So yeah, it's still pain and he is still being, he's still dealing with the problem with it very clearly. I've got a return of around the 16th of December, but honestly, that's very nebulous. That could change at any point. We're not rostering Patrick Williams, but with him out, it does obviously help a little bit of deep league value for old mate Matas Buzelis. More importantly, it helps Ayo become a starter and play 30-ish minutes. Dosunmu really does need one other person out to be a very strong 12-team league guy. At the moment, he's just a guy we hold and see where it goes. But Williams returning would further put some issues into that. The Cleveland Cavaliers, a few injuries on this list, but nothing that looks super, super serious at this point, thankfully. Evan Mobley did sprain his ankle in the last game, and he went out early. We hope that it's nothing serious like the last ankle injury that he had last season, but they've got, again, a nice little gap here between games. So Mobley, you would think, is going to be okay, and no need to panic with it, or no need to go and run to grab George Niang or someone like that. Max Strus had this grade 3 ankle sprain in the preseason and has not returned. Remember the Desmond Bain grade 3 last season when they was like, 2 weeks to be back. Strus been out all this time. Even when he comes back, I don't care. The impact that Strus has on fantasy leagues will not be because of Strus. It will be because he reduces the impact of Karis LeVert and impacts any stream value of Dean Wade or Isaac Okoro or those sort of blokes. He's not going to come in and go, right, I'm Max Strus. Mobley, you sit back. Don Mitchell, take a seat. The Winter Soldier's got it. That's not what's going to happen there. He will be a 3-point streamer to add to the litany of those players, the Duncan Robinsons, Gary Trents, Malik Beasley, blah, 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 Klay Thompsons. Just list them up. Okoro's missed the last couple with a knee problem, and Craig Porter's dealing with an illness. They might play the next game. And Porter's not going to be a rotation piece anyway, so it doesn't really matter. And then Amani Bates has been dealing with a knee issue. He had surgery in the preseason, hasn't played yet. Maybe it's a Christmas return, but I'm very certain that does not matter for almost any fantasy league at all. And I'll be very surprised, honestly, if Bates is in the NBA next season, unfortunately for him. On to the Dallas Mavericks. They do have a game coming up, and there are some important injury updates here. All teams have a game coming up. The Dallas one is just a little bit sooner. There's an illness happening here. Maxi Kleber's been ruled out for their next game, and both Paul Washington Jr. and Najee Marshall are questionable. And you'll notice that Washington, Marshall, and Kleber all play at the 4. That's the position they play. So Kleber, who would be the guy that would have filled in for PJ, or Marshall would be the guy that would fill in for PJ, could all be out. And that would lead us into a very, very intriguing scenario. What would they do in that matchup against the Thunder? I guess the situation you look at is go, okay, you're playing the Thunder, whose power forward is a shooting guard, and that's Jalen Williams, the Bronco. So I would not be surprised if what they do is they make Klay Thompson play the 4. If all of those guys are out. Now, if PJ is out, Najee will start. If Najee's out and PJ's out or in, then whatever, like PJ just does what he does. But if all those guys, if both Washington and Marshall are out, I think we might actually see Grimes start and Klay push up. I don't think it's going to be Olivier Maxence Prosper. I don't think it's going to be Markieff Morris. I bloody hope it's not. And I don't think it's going to be Gafford and Lively together. That would be pretty wild to see that. I think that given the size that Luka Doncic has and the slowness of perimeter movement that Klay Thompson has, that Klay pushing to the 4, especially in that matchup, would work okay. And that means more for Grimes as a streaming option. And honestly, that means more for Spencer Dinwiddie as well. Jaden Hardy is out of that game, their first NBA Cup game against the Thunder with an ankle problem. And it's okay, Kleber's out, and then Dante Exum's out until January with his wrist issue. But we've already got those 2 absences, maybe 2 more, and they are important because if PJ's out and Najee's in, Najee's a stream. If Najee's out, then that does open up stuff for Grimes and for Dinwiddie. So there are important things there with the Dallas Mavericks and injuries. We've got more teams to talk about, and we will do that. But first, I'm going to tell you that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Tackle all the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because you can be a new customer, and when you go and win your first $5 bet, FanDuel will just plop right into your account $150 worth of bonus bets. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything that you could possibly need to place those live bets on the NFL. The live play-by-play information's there. All of the live updating stats, it's there. You don't have to go somewhere else to get it. It's all on the same place that you would place those live bets on FanDuel, which is, of course, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get that hunch, check out all that information and go to FanDuel.com to get yourself started with $150 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. That is FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, and don't forget to gamble responsibly. All right, let's take it through now to the next team after Dallas, which, of course, going alphabetically, we're looking at the Denver Nuggets. Jamal Murray has missed the last 2 games with a hamstring issue. That's not good. It's not good. Obviously, he's had a lot of lower body injuries and knees and hamstrings and groins and all that through the years. He's missed 2 in a row. They do have, of course, the extended break here. So Westbrook gets some more minutes there. Julian Strouder's been interesting as a stream guy, but I'm not super concerned about Murray missing more time here. I think I've got him questionable for the next one. Dario Saric is also dealing with an ankle problem. He's not in the rotation anyway, so that doesn't really matter. And then Vlatko Čančar, they haven't ruled him out for the season. They just said it's a long time. I don't know why they're not ruling him out for the season, but I'm going to say a February return at some point for Čančar. Just adding to the list of big men. It's him, it's Daron Holmes, who just aren't going to play really at all this season. And we know this team needs a backup big man very, very badly because Zeke Nnaji and DeAndre Jordan, guess what? Not it. The Detroit Pistons, Asar Thompson, they said he was out for like an illness management thing, but then they've listed it as an adductor issue now. He's missed the last couple. I do not believe that you need to be rostering Asar Thompson in 10 or 12 team leagues. In Dynasty, sure, very different story. 14 team leagues, I probably would hold him, but any standard formats, it's just too long of a path, I believe, to get back to a situation where even if it's, he gets into playing full minutes after the illnesses and the injury, is it even enough to mean anything for a 12-team league? And the answer to me is probably not. So I don't think we bother with that. Wendell Moore, who had a little bit of a moment earlier this season and then was cut straight back out of the rotation, he's dealing with something personal. That doesn't really matter for us from a fantasy perspective. He just doesn't play. And then the accountant, Bobby Klintman, is dealing with a calf issue, which he suffered in the preseason. We haven't seen Klintman yet. Maybe, I don't know. I was going to say maybe he plays. I'm sure he does at some point. Good player an interesting player who had a very good summer league, a power forward type that would be like a backup to Tobias Harris. But Simone Fontecchio is still in that mix, so I don't think we need to worry too much about the accountant this season. The Golden State Warriors have got a NBA Cup game coming up as well, and Andrew Wiggins missed their last one with that ankle impingement, but they're pretty confident that he's going to play in that game, and that's going to be the real test case, isn't it? So what happens? There's also a report from Anthony Slater saying that the Warriors analytics department decided that there was a really strong lineup they could use against the Wolves, and that is why Hield and Payton started that game. So I wonder what the analytics say for a matchup against Houston. What does it say when Wiggins plays? Do Wiggins, Kuminga, and Green all work together? Who goes to the bench? Hield or Payton? Surely it's Payton. But does Hield even keep starting? I don't know. It's a very, very weird scenario they're still got to figure out. And maybe they'll figure it out at some point in the foreseeable future. When Wiggins is out, it just boosts all those guys like Hield and Kuminga, especially. Their NBA Cup opponent is the Houston Rockets. Fred VanVleet missed the last game. He'd been questionable for a couple before that. He missed that last game with a knee problem. Again, I do think that it is okay and he is fine, and they just wanted to give him that game off, few days off now, play the NBA Cup. Obviously, when VanVleet was out, we saw Amen Thompson go through the roof. We saw Reed Shepherd do nothing, but we saw Amen Thompson go through the roof, and Amen Thompson's a must-roster player. I also think that there's a decent chance that Tari Eason is available for that NBA Cup knockout game. He's been dealing with a concussion. Missed 2 already. This would be about a week. And I get this question often about minimums and what does a concussion protocol mean. There is no minimum, right? If you get put into the concussion protocol, you might miss 0 games, you might miss 1, you might miss 20. There is no minimum or maximum or expected recovery at all. There's none. It's all about how you respond, because you know what a concussion is. It's a hit to your brain. It's a bruise in your brain. And how you respond to that, who knows? Or nobody knows. So there isn't like other sports, like for here down Australia in the AFL, you get a concussion. It's a 12-day minimum that you have to be out. If you're diagnosed concussion, you cannot play for 12 days. That doesn't exist in the NBA. So Eason might be available. With Eason out, it just means more for Jabari Smith. It means you get a little bit of Jayshawn Tate for the deeper formats as well. The Indiana Pacers, we talked about this when both James Wiseman and Isaiah Jackson went down and then they signed Moses Brown. There were some people getting a little bit excited, especially after his first game. I think he had like 10 points in 9 minutes. What do we have to do to get him value? And I gave you the playbook on this about Moses Brown. I go, Moses Brown comes in. Moses Brown puts up interesting minutes interesting numbers in small minutes, and people go, "Oh, that's exciting." And then the team watches him and they go, "Absolutely not. What are we doing now? There is no way that this is what is this? Absolutely not. We'll see you later." And they phased him out and they dropped his minutes and he played 4-minute game and 3 a game and out of the rotation. And guess what? They cut him today. I feel sorry for the guy, but this is the same pattern for every single team that he's been on. It just doesn't work. This is a team that has no backup center. None. It's Miles Turner and that is it. And they said, we'd actually rather nobody at the moment than you, Moses Brown. And that is just, again, so don't ever get fooled into Moses Brown thinking he's going to be an NBA player. It's not going to happen. Aaron Nesmith and Ben Shepherd remain out. Ankle for Nesmith, oblique for Shepherd. I've got an estimated return around the 19th of December. While they are out, it helps Mathurin keep his minutes up. Not his play, because that sucked the last couple of games. And I am a little worried about Mathurin, to be honest. But what this really does mean is that Timothy John McConnell becomes a 12-team league player. And that might change when those guys return. It also means that the dildo Johnny Furphy gets some extra value for those deeper formats. He's getting 10 to 12 minutes a night at the moment. On the Clippers side of things, a few injuries are built up here, but I think most of this is a little bit nonsensy. Jim Harden sat the last game with a groin issue. I'm almost 100% certain he plays on Friday. It's just, hey, that was a nice little spot to give him a week off after he'd been dealing with some soreness. Carrying the entire team, I think he'll be back and fine on Friday. Derek Jones hurt his hamstring. Now, I'm always going to be a little cautious on hamstrings and be like, oh, that's going to mean missed time. But the time that they would usually automatically rule him out for is just taken up by the fact that there are 0 games on. So I think there is a chance that Jones is available to play on Friday. Not that it matters much for fantasy, but that's a deeper league spot. Amir Coffey was a very late scratch. He hurt his shoulder in the warm-ups. And again, I would pretty much rule him out if the game was on Monday or Tuesday, but it's not. So Coffey could be available. Terrence Mann, we know, is probably out until the new year with that finger/hand surgery. And that means that Jordan Miller stays in the rotation. And you get Chris Dunn and Kevin Porter and Amir Coffey all sort of doing the things they've been doing. Kawhi, I have no idea. There's a little bit of propaganda stuff coming out for Kawhi. Hey, he's doing some work. Is he? Okay. Don't actually care. Because as you are well aware, this team and this player, and I love Kawhi as a player, they lie all the time. And I sort of understand part of why they do it. The reason they do it is his knee is rooted. It's done. It's over for him. Not in terms of ever playing again, but for ever being healthy, it is done. That is my distant opinion. So whatever propaganda you hear, anything. Had someone drop a comment and say, hey, I'm 7-0, can I pick up Kawhi? Like, I mean, sure, you can. Like, it's probably not going to cost you much. But if he's sitting as a free agent, do it. But like, I honestly have no idea. I wouldn't be expecting him back in the next week or two. And then when he comes back, you will get good games without any question. You will get some good games. It's about how long those games can last and how bad this knee swelling, which will swell every game, basically. And we'll see how much that then incapacitates him. Kobe Brown has missed a few games with a back issue. He's not going to be a part of the rotation most nights anyway, so I think we're going to be pretty good there. The Lakers, a few injuries here, and I think a lot of these, the two major ones are going to be okay for their next game action. That's Austin Reeves and LeBron James. Reeves dealing with that pelvis problem, although we remember that Emmanuel quickly had that pelvic issue, and that kept him out a little bit of time, but we've got the extended period to rest here. I think he'll be available, so I'm going to put him as probable. I'm certain that LeBron plays in the next game. I put him as probable. He sat that game again, just too much load build up on him, and extended break, he'll be fine, I'm certain. And that is why if you are looking to, I've heard people, looking, man, I'm in a 10-team league. I saw someone ask this 10-team league, should I burn waiver priority 1 to get D'Angelo Russell? And the answer is no, obviously, I think. Although, and I don't care about waiver priority really at all, but you're in a 10-team league, and the next time they play, Russell might be behind Reeves and LeBron again, playing 24 minutes next to Gabe Vincent. And that's not useful. Because remember, you don't get the last game. Christian Wood and Jackson Hayes, maybe 2 to 3 more games. I'm not sure. We haven't had a real update on Wood recently, apart from the setback he suffered 3 weeks ago. We did get the update on Jared Vanderbilt, who said that this is pushed even further into January. He is not going to have a fantasy impact this season, Jared Vanderbilt. I am relatively confident of that. The Memphis Grizzlies, another team that I believe used the Sunday game to give extended rest to players. Ja Morant with back soreness and Desmond Bane with toe soreness. Very, very certain that they're okay, and they will play the next game. So if you're thinking of trying out, hey, maybe it's Jake LaRavia time, maybe it is time to get Scottie Pippen back, I don't believe that is going to be the case. And also that game from the Grizzlies was such a gigantic ass-kicking that nothing in that game really was a takeaway anyway. Zach Edey, we're still probably a week or so away from him returning. I've got Vince Williams there. I've written 12th and 19th, but that's just a bad copy-paste error for me. I don't think Williams is back until after Christmas with his ankle sprain. Edey will be probably someone to stash, but again, this is an ongoing problem where he suffered a setback in his ankle issue, and I do think they're going to cap his minutes around 20, which is okay, but it's more in the Jonas Valanciunas mode of fantasy value. The Duck Luke Kennard has missed the last couple of games with an illness. I'm pretty certain he will return for their next one. And then Greg Jackson, an update on him. We thought maybe around Christmas, but no, it's going to be around the All-Star break now as he returns from that broken foot, and he's not going to have an impact this season at all. So the only one I'd look at there, look, Morant and Bane, fine. They're going to be back next game, no worries. Edey will be back soon-ish, but I'd be somewhat tempering some of the expectations. The next few teams were actually pretty okay with injuries. Pelle Larsson is dealing with an ankle problem, and with Larsson out the last couple of games, we're getting like 25 minutes of Drew Smith. Drew Smith has moved ahead in the rotation of Jaime Jaquez Jr., and Smith was okay, but how does it... Well, he's pretty good, actually. How does it go when Larsson's back? Larsson was ahead of Jr. as well, or Jaquez, sorry. We'll see exactly where he moves into that rotation, but Larsson's just that nice, deeper league player who I think is pretty limited upside, much like Jaquez, and just was outplaying him this season. So that's that one. We don't have a full update there. The next team we take a look at is your Milwaukee Bucks, and at the moment, there's nobody on the injury report. I'm sure Giannis will pop up with a knee tendonitis situation. They're playing the Bucks. No, they're not. They are the Bucks. They're playing the Magic. They do have another game this week, maybe. Them and the Knicks are the teams that we don't know about. Every team that plays in the NBA Cup will have an extra game this week that's not scheduled. The Bucks may not. If the Bucks lose to Orlando and the Knicks lose to the Hawks, it has to be and, not or. They both have to lose. If they both lose, then Milwaukee versus New York will be played on Monday the week after. But if Milwaukee wins, they play Saturday. If they lose and the Knicks win, they play on Sunday. So that's the only uncertainty this week in the schedule is whether you get the extra game from the Bucks and Knicks this week. That is the only uncertainty in the schedule. We'll come back to talk about the rest of the teams, but today's episode is brought to you by the good folks over at Mint Mobile. Unlike the big wireless providers, Mint Mobile are legends because they tell you exactly what you're going to get. With big mobile, your big wireless, you don't know that because they could change those prices and hide things, and you get these hidden fees and all that sort of stuff, and you get home and you see the bill, you go, hey, but that's not what I signed up for. With Mint Mobile, when they tell you that you are going to be getting a plan that's $15 a month for 3 months, well, that is what they mean. So say goodbye to overpriced wireless plans and their jaw-dropping monthly fees and their unexpected overages. Mint Mobile rescues you with the premium wireless plan starting at $15 a month. High-speed data, unlimited talk and text, the nation's largest 5G network. Yeah, Mint Mobile has got all those things. You can bring your own phone over, your own phone number, and you bring all of your existing contacts across as well. So ditch overpriced wireless with Mint Mobile's deal and get 3 months of premium wireless service for $15 a month. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/lockedonnba. That is mintmobile.com/lockedonnba. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/lockedonnba. $45 upfront payment required, which is equivalent, of course, to $15 a month. New customers on a first 3-month plan only. The speeds will get slower above 40 gigabytes on the unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. Let's go through the rest of these teams now in the league. We'll go to Minnesota. Just 2 names on the list there. One of them is Rob Dillingham, who's dealing with an ankle injury. He's not going to be a part of the rotation most nights anyway, so we're pretty good. And neither is Joe Ingles, who's also dealing with a calf issue. They might be questionable for the next game, but it doesn't really matter. They're just not going to play. You are seeing Josh Minot creep into the rotation a little bit, getting those 4 or 5 minutes that Ingles was getting, and maybe they just stick with him anyway. On to the Pelicans, and obviously there are more injuries here. Even though a lot of the guys have returned, there's still quite a bit going on. Brandon Ingram suffered that ankle sprain. Zion Williamson's dealing with a hamstring. We don't have either of those guys playing again in 2024. Got a return date around January the 1st for both of those players. That means we get way more for Herb Jones, way more for Trey Murphy, way more touches for DeJounte, way more touches for C.J. McCollum, way more minutes for Yves Missi as well. The one to watch there is going to be Jordan Hawkins, who might miss another game or two, and I would guess when Hawkins returns. Not that I've been particularly impressed with Hawkins, but it does cut into some of that upside that you might think that BJ Boston has. Boston was pretty good last game. He scored well, but it required like 65% shooting from BJ to get there, and I just don't think you're going to have a success rate on BJ that high. He's more going to be, and someone corrected me, because I said he was a 38% shooter, which was a little bit me being tongue-in-cheek, but I do appreciate the correction. I think as they say, he's a 44% shooter, which is still not very good. And it's still 20% off, 20 percentage points off what he did in the last game. And when Hawkins comes back, that does impact Boston. If you want to try BJ, go for it, right? It is totally okay to try that out and see where it goes. But if BJ is not your style and he doesn't work out on your team, I don't think you're going to miss out on much, because I think Hawkins will have an impact there. Javonte Green missed the last game with an ankle problem. He is going to get some minutes. It's him and Robinson Earl that will get some of those backup 4 minutes with Trey Murphy now starting there. Jose Alvarado will also eventually have an impact on BJ and on Hawkins. He's probably a couple of weeks away with his hamstring injury, but he's not someone we need to care about in the majority of leagues. And then Daniel Tice and Carlo Makovic have both been out. Tice, I'm guessing, will come in and play some of those backup minutes behind Misi. Whether that impacts Eve at all, I don't know. Eve played 31 the last game, but he was down to like 24 or 25, I believe, when Ingram was healthy. And I think the Ingram and Zion absences actually impact Misi's value in minutes a little bit more than the absence or presence of Vanilla Tice does. For the New York Knicks, they do play on Monday, one of only 2 teams, and they are the only other team like Milwaukee where their amount of games this week is unknown. Because they definitely play 2, and they could play 3 if they win their game on Wednesday, or if they lose and Milwaukee wins on Wednesday. Then they will play again on Sunday. So the Knicks could play a Saturday game, they could play a Sunday game, or they could play the following Monday. That one we don't know. But you got a pretty good chance that they play 3 games this week. Karl Anthony Towns missed the last game. He's dealing with a knee issue. I think there's a chance he sits out on Monday. They start Jericho Sims and play him 6 minutes. They should just be playing Ariel Hukporti in that spot. I don't know why they don't. And that would mean that the big sneeze, Precious Achiuwa, becomes a streamable option, especially with a Monday-Wednesday game. Now, long-term, I do not like Precious Achiuwa as a 12-team league player, but with the potential of an absence for Towns in one of these games, and the fact that you get 2 games in the first 3 days of this week, which literally no other team does, makes him interesting. Cameron Payne also, if he is available, there's a little bit of stream value in him as well. He's been dealing with an elbow problem. He's officially questionable for the game on Monday. And if he is out, well, you know that Tom Thibodeau will just go deep into his bench and try and spread out some other minutes to preserve the guys to be able... What am I talking about? Of course he won't. If Campaign doesn't play, it doesn't matter. We'll just get 50 minutes into everybody else. You might get 2 minutes of Tyler Kolek. So, yeah, cool. Whatever. Mitchie Robinson, maybe around a Christmas return. There are a lot of people that expect that Robinson will just start. Towns will play at the 4. I don't think that for a number of reasons. Robinson has had a recurrent ankle problem for over a year now, multiple surgeries. He's also not very good. Put that part out there. But that would also mean that Josh Hart moves to the bench. I'm guessing it would be Josh Hart because it wouldn't be Bronson, it wouldn't be Bridges, and it wouldn't be Anunoby. So that would mean Josh Hart would be a bench player. And I'm not sure that that will happen. I believe that they made the trade to get Karl Anthony Towns because they needed a center, because they wanted a center. And the Towns is better, and this has been very stark. He is better as a center than a power forward. And I know you'll tell me that his defense at center is terrible, and that is 100% true. It is. And they will play a little bit together, Robinson and Towns. But I don't think that this means Robinson comes in as a 25-minute a night player next to Towns. I don't think that will happen at all. I think they'll be very cautious and very limited on Robinson. And if, again, Tibbs is a maniac, but he does usually, when someone's dealing with that significant sort of problem, he does adhere, especially when they're not good, to some of the injury limitations. Not always. He's not a big prevention guy in terms of injuries. He's like, who cares? If they die, they die. But if someone is hurt and is recovering, he will adhere to that stuff. Got to be fair to him. Got to be fair, I think. The Oklahoma City Thunder, we haven't really had an update on Pig Williams lately. He has not played this season, the big Jalen Williams, the Vietnamese legend, with a hamstring that got re-irritated that cost him another 4 or 5 weeks, but maybe that time frame is coming up. When he returns, he'll just slide in and get minutes alongside or instead of Kenrich Williams as the Isaiah Hartenstein backup, and it doesn't really matter for majority of leagues. Chet's out until February is my guess, and Usman Jeng are around Christmas, and Jeng's not going to matter. He's not going to be a rotation piece, and Jalen Williams is going to be a minimal one as well, so there's not really a lot to talk about there. The big one, of course, is the Orlando Magic. With our old Razzmatazz Magic, we've got no Paolo Banchero. I think that a return close to Christmas is possible from his torn oblique, whereas Franz Wagner, I think we're looking towards the middle to end of January. I've got the 21st of January for a Franz Wagner return, meaning we've got about a week to 10 days of a situation left here with no Paolo and no Franz. Gary Harris also dealing with a hamstring. He's out for their NBA Cup game. I don't think that... Gary's a very slow healer. Obviously, he might miss more time after this. And then John Isaac, who had a leg cramp, and then they've now called it a hamstring irritation, and now they've called it a hamstring strain because, of course, they're lying. He pinged his hamstring. That's what happened. And I don't know why they bothered to lie about it. And Jonathan Isaac has had a million injuries. So they are listing him questionable for the NBA Cup game, which I don't know why. Just rule the man out. But if he's going to be out and Harris is out and these other guys are out, yeah, we are definitely looking at Cole Anthony. Cole Anthony is an ad in some spots, I think. I think actually in quite a few spots, I would consider it because, like we said, somebody needs to take shots, and he can. I'd much prefer him than Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, than Mr. Black, than Tristan da Silva. Mo Wagner's an interesting one. Goga Badadze, obviously we're rostering him, but it's a little bit different. I'd probably actually prefer at the moment Cole Anthony over Wendell Carter. But if Isaac is out, it does help boost Mo. It boosts Goga a little bit, but it boosts Wendell too. It just means there's someone else who can't play into those roles. The Philadelphia 76ers are, unbelievably, there's one person on the injury list, and it's a Dem Boner. That's it. Embiid is playing. Paul George is playing. That doesn't mean that'll be the case all the way forward. Boner is the fourth string center at the moment, behind Embiid, Yabusele, and Drummond. So that's it. He's dealing with a knee problem. I like him as a player. Not going to matter much. In Phoenix, there's Kevin Durant, there's Yusuf Nurkic. Maybe they're back this week. They've got a game on Friday. I actually think that it's maybe the weekend or the Monday or Tuesday game after that. But that's okay. With Durant out, it's Royce O'Neal and Grayson Allen. With Nurkic out, it's the cockroach Mason Plumlee, who's borderline as a value option. Ryan Dunn's been dealing with some ankle issues, and I think if Dunn plays, it does sort of cut a little bit off of O'Neal and Allen. They've been pushing 30, 32, and they might be 29, 27 if Dunn is available to play. But they're not playing until Friday, so there's no real urgency on anything like that. Colin Gillespie's dealing with an ankle fracture. Maybe it's a Christmas return for him, but also that doesn't really matter for most leagues. In Portland, we've got the center situation still uncertain. Don Klingen's dealing with that MCL sprain. We're talking around, I don't believe he's back until after Christmas. You can stash him, but this is a big man with a knee injury that I think is going to be a little bit longer than they initially said. And you're still going to have Ayton and allegedly Robert Williams there as well. And he'll be playing his 12 or 13 minutes, and it won't be very good until something happens later on. As for Rob Williams, I would have expected that he could have been back around this time, but it is a concussion, so we literally don't know. There is no time frame on this stuff. And when he does come back, the concussion shouldn't limit his playing time. It'll just be how they want to distribute that between Ayton and him. And if it's 24 minutes for Rob Williams, which it could be, because before the injury, that's what happened. Ayton was playing 24 minutes a night. That would mean Williams is an awesome ad. But I just don't know. Matisse Thybulle had a knee issue in the preseason, came back and sprained his ankle. We're looking at around the 28th of December. I actually don't know where he fits in the rotation because you've got Kamara, you've got Scoot, you've got Banton, you've got Simons, you've got Avdia. He's not getting 20 minutes a night, Thybulle, I don't think, unless someone just gets completely chucked out of there. And what's that? Avdia, Kamara, Scoot? I don't know. I'm not really sure where Thybulle fits in. And then Dwop Reith, who's like the fourth string center now, he's dealing with a back issue. So you got the three centers behind Ayton all not playing, meaning Jabari Walker is needing to get those backup minutes. In Sacramento, we've got not that many injuries. Trey Lyles with that calf strain. He's going to be out a few weeks. And what we've seen is that Jay Crowder sometimes gets those minutes, and then Isaac Jones. But then Jones missed the last game with an illness. Now, Isaac Jones is putting up some pretty good numbers, actually, for deeper formats. And I expect that he's back in the next game, and then he'll move back into that 10 to 12-minute role. Devin Carter, we have not seen this season. I'm expecting a mid-January return, and then even that case, what's he doing? Battling Keon Ellis for 12 minutes a night. It's not going to be an impactful scenario, I'm guessing, for most people. In San Antonio, I'm not going to put Victor Wembanyama on this injury report, even though he did leave the last game with a back issue, or his back was sore again, but he came back, but that happened. But what we do need to pay attention to is Keldon Johnson suffered a calf strain, and I believe that'll keep him out for a period of time. So I've put him out for about 2 weeks there with a calf strain. I don't have an official update on that. With him out, it might mean we get more Jeremy Sohan, and the minutes for Sohan have been frustrating. I thought he's played relatively well in the time that he's been there, but he's played 21 minutes in 3 of the 4 games, and he started 1 at center and played 32, which is interesting. Their rotations are a little bit confusing. Aussie fast bowler Mitch Johnson sort of keeping it a bit weird with both Vassell and Sohan coming off the bench, and I don't think that should be something they're doing long term. Like, you're starting Castle and Champagny and Barnes, who I would argue, you can debate this if you want, I would argue all 3 of those blokes are significantly worse than Vassell and Sohan. I think that when Vassell starts, which should be soon, that will mean Sohan will start with him, because there is obviously spacing concerns. So I am holding Sohan for now. Trey Jones, I'm expecting a January return from him. That does help Castle and his ball handling. Giggity. And then you might get a bit of Blake Wesley or the Malachi Branham into there as well, but probably not because they're also not very good. Zach Collins left the last game with a back issue, which would mean if he misses, that means Goldfinger Charlie Bassey has the opportunity to be Wemby's backup and play 16 minutes or so and actually be like a 14-team stream option. But I'd need to hear that Zach is out, and I don't know that yet. The Raptors, one of the only teams playing on Monday. There's only two of them. They're playing the Knicks. Quickly's going to be out. Bruce Brown's going to be out. I think we're still probably a few games away from Quickly, but an update would be good just to hear what's actually going on there. Do not drop Emmanuel Quickly. Bruce Brown has not played this season. Maybe he's back for their next game, which I believe is Thursday. But also, I don't think he's having an impact in fantasy, apart from limiting O'Shea Abaji, limiting Jacoby Walter, Davion Mitchell, and there'll be the occasional flash from Brown. Hope he doesn't do that in the wrong spot. And it's just not going to be enough as a regular type addition. The Utah Jazz, who've had injuries all over the shop, there's only one guy on the injury report, and we've had no update on the man on the street, JORDANCLARKSON. Jordan Clarkson's dealing with a plantar fascia issue here. We haven't seen him in like 2 weeks, and they just won't rule him out for anything more than one game. But I don't even know how much it matters, because even with Clarkson out, Colin Sexton might play 39 minutes. He might play 24 minutes, because also Colin Sexton's not very good. And they have clearly been trying to deprioritize him, and then they do it, and that team is a mess, and I think I'm just going to get their rotations wrong all the time. And when Clarkson comes back, I'm not going to be interested in adding him, so that, of course, means he'll play 33 minutes and score 50 points in his first game. I'm getting confident in that. But then as soon as I become confident in Clarkson doing that, he'll play 10 minutes and miss all 10 of his shots. The last team is a team that does have a lot of injuries at the moment, and it's creating a lot of weirdness. It is the Washington Wizards. Alex Sarr, Kyle Kuzma, Corey Kispert, Keyshawn George, Malcolm Brogdon are all rotation players, and you could argue they're 5 of their best 7 players, and they're all out. But I think they could all be back. Sarr missed the last game with a back issue. Kuzma's missed the last few with a rib problem. Corey Kispert and Keyshawn George dealing with ankle issues. Brogdon's the only one that I don't think will be back in the next game. He had a hamstring problem. I'm thinking around Christmas for Broggo, and I wouldn't bother holding him. But Sarr, Kuzma, Kispert, and George, all of those guys can play the 4. They can all play the 3 as well. Well, Sarr probably not, but the others can play the 3. Meaning that the value you're getting out of Justin Champagny, old Prosecco, is contingent on probably 3 of those 4 players being out. So it's been really good for Prosecco the last couple of games. But the ability for that to hold is dependent on the status of those 4 players. So I don't think we should be rushing or prioritizing Justin Champagny, who's, again, been very good. But it requires a lot happening. The other guy that's on the injury report is Patrick Baldwin, who's also, guess what, a 4. Not that he'd necessarily play over Champagny, but he'd be in the mix. And the other guys that are out, guess who they are? Tristan Vukcevic, who's a big man. Not that Vukcevic is going to play, although I do think later on in the season he will have some value somewhere. And that's it. I had a lot of technical difficulties recording this. My program kept crashing, so you might see some weird cuts in there. Hopefully I'm able to edit them out later on, but that's what it is if that's where we got. Don't forget, though, I want your sub. I want you to thumb it up and leave comments, but I also want you to be good. I want you to be good to yourself. I want you to, leading into this holiday period, through the thankful period, I want you to be acknowledging that you are actually worthy of stuff and you do good things. Find it. It can be something small. It can be something big. It can be something inconsequential. It can be life-changing or life-shattering, whatever. It's good, though. There is something good there. Understand that you do it, because if you know that you do something good, then if you do something that's maybe not correct or wrong, then you can say, hey, but I do the good thing, so I'm not terrible. Let's work on it and let's push forward. Let's be positive in this space and in others. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.